Hey, I think you're really going to like this one today. And I think I got the best job in the world interviewing great salespeople. And this interview, I want, like most of them, you have to give it a chance because you're going to hear, oh, this guy sold insurance to companies. Well, that's not what I do, and that's a different sale. I have no interest in that. Well, that's not the point. The point here is the mindset, the practice, the process, and how do you differentiate yourself in what can be viewed as very much a commodity, a price list type of thing. And I really enjoyed this interview. They just seem to keep getting better. And what I heard was that he became a student of the business. And this is what I've been calling in the podcast playing the whole game of sales. Because what you hear out there on the internet are the tips and the tricks, the little pieces of a sale. There's nothing wrong with that, but we tend to think that, if we just get an aggregate of these tips and tricks, we're going to be fantastic. No, because what ends up happening is the deal dies on the weakest link. Where was the tip and trick for that? We have to play the whole game. And I got a lot out of this interview because when you listen to somebody, and we were talking about, a large time span here, his whole career, and what motivated him, what process he took on. And I tried to drill down because when I hear the I worked harder part, I go, well, can you really work harder than other people? Especially if you have a family. There's a lot of people who work 16 hours a day more. Are you going to work? You got to eventually get smarter at it because there are people who work harder. I tried that as an engineer when I got into it, but then I was up against people who had just come to the country, who their family had saved up their money to put their kid through school. And they're sleeping in their office. I go, I'm not going to outwork these people. But what they didn't have was the creativity that I worked on. They had the raw horsepower, the back-breaking labor part of it, but not the creative part of it. And there's so many different ways to become great at sales. And I think you're going to get a lot out of this interview. I'll sum it up at the end. Make sure you're checking out our friends over at CoVideo. Video email is one of the things that is really being able to connect you with your market, to be able to express yourself, your product, your solution, your way of helping clients in a visual way. Now, I've been doing this on office hours. I don't know why I didn't turn the camera on. And it was more like me wanting to focus on the problem and instead of just the image of it. But what was missing was the connection. So I started turning the camera, and all of a sudden there was a lot more engagement. I was feeling more part of it. I think the participants were feeling more part of it. It was much more of a community. And camera and video, it's really how we connect now. So check out CoVideo. Give it a try. They got a free trial. Tell them you heard it on the podcast. Also, are you stuck using Salesforce? Oh, God, I feel bad for you. It was one of the reasons I went out on my own. When the company started, mandating all of this data entry, I was like, this ain't my bag, baby. And I started my own company. But not everybody can do that, or you're not at that stage in your career. Try out Scratchpad. I heard about it a couple months ago. The founder had done a previous company that I was aware of that was really a cool product. I checked it out. I think they're onto something. Big investor, David Sachs. You might know him. He's been insanely. He's part of that PayPal mafia. Give it a try. Help you save several hours a week in data entry into Salesforce. They got a Chrome plugin, free trial. Check it out, scratchpad.com. Also, if you're in the course, make sure you're checking out those office hours. We had one yesterday that cooked. And you know what it comes down to? A lot of times there's this go and Google the stages of denial because I think this is how people learn how to sell or change the way they learn how to sell. The first step is kind of denial, or they oh, it didn't happen, or it's not that bad. I'm doing that already. And then you start to chip away, and then all of a sudden that acceptance stage, that negotiation stage, and then the results, very much like what I hear with salespeople, is they're not comfortable with that job until they close a deal, until they've got that deal behind them, where that confidence level has almost like a switch, goes from doubt to confidence. And that's what's happening in the course. And when you hear other people on the call share when they flip that switch, that the deals went from slipping to closing, all of a sudden, and I got an email right after the office, I was like, that one rocked. Because was it new? No, all that stuff was in the course before for years. But people need to hear it in the right context for more than me, and why it works, and the tiny distinctions, and to be open-minded about trying it and why it works. So make sure you're checking those out. They're all gold, they're all recorded, and they're put in the course. Here we go. Hey, Michael, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Michael Johnson. I've been in the insurance business for 30 plus years. I started out in a large insurance company, and I realized back then that brokers that I worked with were weak, and that in order to make money, I needed to eat their lunch. And I went out and started a brokerage firm and built that one up to a significant amount of money, and left that company and started my own company and sold that one in 2010. I retired for 4 years, and my wife said, "Hey, you know what? You can't be home anymore. Get your bald ass out of here and go back to work." So I started another company with some partners, and we are proverbially kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah. And let's start back with what were those agents doing wrong that you saw a weakness in?
Well, look, I think in any business, you have to be a master of your own destiny, right? You have to understand and be a student of the business. And what I realized what they did was they did a lot of good relationship building, but didn't understand the technical aspects of the business. And I understood the very detailed technical aspects of the business and could articulate the message in a way that anybody could understand it, right? So I took a very technical underwriting model and made it simple enough that whether you're a great CFO or a great HR person, you could understand it. And if you wanted to get more deeper in from a technical perspective, I could go as deep as you want. And the other thing is they all needed these big teams with them to help them sell. You know, I got to have 5 people. No, you don't. The right sales guy, the good salesperson, male or female, by that way, should be able to articulate the message by themselves without a big team. Yeah. Teams are great, but if you're the only one speaking, that means the 4 other people there are useless. So I don't need them with me. All I really need is an audience of the decision makers who can say yes or no based on the knowledge information that I'm giving them.
And was it that they didn't spend the time to understand the nuances?
No, you know what? It was they just had the relationship. They were a friend of the owner. They were a friend of this person.
They got the meeting.
Referred. They got referred in, right? So they got the business. But when it got difficult, that's when they came to the insurance company or the rep at the insurance company. Well, I realized then they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. So all I have to do is go out and explain to these clients, and this was back in the early 90s, right? That I understand what their job is. I'm doing it for them, and I'm doing it better than they are. Yeah. Again, I was young. I was 23 years old, something like that. No problem fighting the fight. And as I grew, in the business, I realized that the same thing applied. You have to get to the office early. You need to make more calls than the other guy. You need to fight harder than the other person. No matter what business you're in, fight harder to win and make sure that you're both honest and transparent with what you're doing. And those two things, between your focus and energy on how to sell and what you're selling, if a student of the business, and then making sure that you're there early enough. I hear you talk a lot about the pipeline and all that, with the sales managers want to hear. I had to deal with all that crap, right? Oh, you got to make 100 calls, get 10 appointments, get one sale. I said, yeah, but I could, if you really do what you're supposed to do, which is sell every minute of every day, and every person you speak to is a sales opportunity. Every one of them, right? You're out to dinner with a friend. Oh, what do you do? Who in your business does insurance? You think I can get an appointment with them? Well, that gets me more business than making 100 calls or 1,000 calls.
Now, insurance has to be like classically viewed as a commodity until you get to know it.
You look, I mean, I'm not in the individual insurance, so I'm in the large group.
Sure.
What I consider middle market, so 500 employees to 10,000 employees. That's my market segment. And yeah, while it is a commodity in essence, it really isn't, because you have to understand the financials. You have to understand what's going on within the experience of the group to make it
unique,
either a success or a failure. Remember, insurance is your second largest business expense outside of payroll. Second largest.
Yeah. And how did you differentiate yourself there? Because
really, it's quite simple, right? I mean, two things. I worked harder. I understood, and I was a student of the business. And I use that term, and I think you understand what I'm speaking about. But I really understood, and I educated myself on every aspect from a financial perspective of what the client needed to understand. Again, understanding that it's a very large expense for any business, whether you're a 5 life group or a 5,000 life group, the numbers just expand, but your budget expands, right? So if you can help them understand and give them really clear ideas that are non-biased, then you can be a success for that group. Now, one of the biggest challenges, oh, sorry.
Well, I was thinking, what does the competition do? They show up and describe what it is and how it works.
So you look, here's the difference between me and my competition. My competition loves coming in with these big presentations and talk to them about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it's all about them, right? I don't give a flying fart about me. My presentations are about the client, what their needs are, what they are looking to get accomplished. And when I'm doing a presentation at a first call, I'm only really listening. I'm asking them thought-provoking questions about their business, about why they need this product versus any other product. I don't even bring up the name of my company or really anything about me, because the meeting, a sales meeting, a good sales guy, it's not about them. It's really, really, for me, again, I may be the dumbest guy in the room, but for me, it's about listening to what the client needs and then fitting what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it based on two things: their needs and their knowledge base. If they understand from a technical perspective, then I can get very technical with them. But if I need to explain a very technical situation to somebody who doesn't understand technicals, I can speak as though I can match my audience, is what I'm saying. And I make sure that they understand it, but it's never about me. So we get to the end of a meeting, end of a presentation, they say, oh, well, what's that over there on the corner of the table? I'm like, it's stuff that you can read when I leave. And if you want to fall asleep late at night, it's good reading material, but it's never about me. And all my people are like, I cannot believe you don't bring a presentation. I'm like, no, I bring it, but we don't open it. I said, because if you have to go through a presentation, then you haven't set the meeting up correctly.
Right. And how long did it take you to come to this conclusion? Because you probably weren't born that way, and the first meeting
I
didn't go that
actually
way.
what I actually look, when I first started, I had a sales manager, right? This is how you sell. Okay. It didn't work. It doesn't work. So then I stopped bringing the sales manager and I started doing it on my own, and success came rather quickly. And I'm always the guy that's going to beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission.
Yeah, good.
From the very beginning, because my success was so rapid, I never really had to worry about whether anybody liked what I did or how I did it, because at the end of the day, the numbers spoke for themselves.
Right.
I mean, I remember back in the old day when they say, "Oh, you got to fill out this report in the CRM." I would literally open the yellow pages, write down company names, and hand it to them. I've never even talked to these people. It's a garbage.
You're what I call a maverick, and that's a compliment.
So throughout my career, I've realized early on, I'm not a company guy, right? I'm not the guy that's going to sit there and follow the rules because they're rules. No. You give a sales goal, and I'm going to hit the goal, and I'm going to exceed the goal by a lot. That's my job.
Yeah. And what motivated you personally?
Look, for me, I say this to everybody. It's all about my family.
Yeah.
Back then I had young kids. I got married young. I had kids young. I did everything for my kids. I don't go out and party after hours with the clients. I send them to games. You want to go to baseball games? Sold to you. Got that. You want to go to hockey games? Got that. You want a concert? Got that. I'm not going with you. I show up at the office, with my younger days, show up at the office at 6 a.m., get my day schedule going, do my couple calls, head out to meetings, to come back, blah, blah, blah. And be home to read the stories to the kids at night. I'm all about making sure that, when my kids are old now, but when my kids are young, make sure that they know that dad cares. Make sure that they know why I'm working my ass off. Make sure they get that what I'm doing is not for me. It's for the family. And when you have family time, you be there. And so I worked really, really hard and made sure that I was present in my kids' lives.
And was it a commission only job, or was there some kind of guarantee?
Listen, no matter what you say, I was like, oh yeah, I paid you $20,000. No, you didn't. You backed it out of the commission.
Right.
100% of it's commission. Look, I never worried about it, because in my business, we're, at a certain point you get to, your book, the business that you've built is yours, right? So you're getting an annuity every year, because you're working on that business every day, every year. And it's, until you screw up and lose it, it's your business, right? It's part of your book. So I was very fortunate. My book was very large, and I had a very large team of people helping assist that.
And what I liked when you describe about working hard, but what I really heard was you were working hard at working smart.
Well, yeah, you have to be smart about it, right?
Especially if you want to be a family guy.
Look, there's certain things you have to do, right? And part of it, technology's helped a lot.
Yeah.
Technology's helped a great deal. I don't have to be in an office anymore. I don't have to have, all this paper, right? Now it's all computers.
Yeah.
So I don't need all of the BS that you had before. But working smart is understanding what your goal is. Understanding, if my goal is to write $1 million of new business a year, how am I going to do it? Am I going to do, what I've done in the past, or am I going to try to modify it based on what the client's needs are today versus what they were 2 years ago. And you back to this student of the business. Have you made sure that you've done your homework and understand every nuance that's gone on in the marketplace, both positively and negatively? Because in order to really win, you don't have to just know the positives. You have to actually know the negatives as well, and know who your competitors are, right? And really, when you are asked what differentiates you, you need to be able to really pinpoint and be specific without throwing rocks at your competition. I'm not a believer in throwing rocks at anybody, right? If somebody says, "Oh, this guy's a piece of shit" or whatever, I'm like, I've got no bid on this. I've got no dog in this fight. I just look. I'm going to tell you what makes me different and what drives me. And one of the things that really gets any prospect that I speak to is I tell them, look, talk to my clients that have been with me for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and ask them one simple question. Does he fight as hard at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years like he did the first year? If the answer is no, don't hire me.
No,
but the answer is never no.
And that's student of the game. People
student of the business.
Of the business.
Yeah.
Let's drill down on that, because I think people hear it and they assume they're doing it too, because they attend a webinar, they read a blog, they listen to a podcast, because that is where the gold is, because your sale has a pattern, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know what you're selling, you know why they're buying. And the game is very confined.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, do you want me to answer that? Is that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, I think a lot of people hear the term student of the business, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm that. But are you? No. But are you? Because when I say student of the business, I'm not simply speaking about the insurance business. I'm talking about the art of sales. Yeah. I'm talking about the ability to shut your mouth and listen when a prospect has a question, to be able to take in what they're talking about and make sure that you can put it into your brain and digest it and then put it back in English. So you're making sure that you're both on the same page, because you need to be able to articulate that message to your team who has to service it. Yeah. And yeah, sure, maybe I'll bring somebody with me, one person, somebody that is servicing the account afterwards. But at the end of the day, you've really got to be able to do a couple of things. Listen to the client or the prospect. And even the client, I mean, once they become your client, you got to listen to them even more. They're paying you. You've got to make sure that you're knowledgeable, right? You have to make sure that you're knowledgeable, not only on insurance, but on all of the various aspects. What's going on from a state legislative perspective? What's going on from a federal perspective, right? Federal mandates. What's happening within the government, right? What's coming down the pipe next year or the year after? What's being spoken about? Whether it actually happens is irrelevant. But you need to be able to have that conversation to be able to prepare your clients for not just 1 year. And what I talk to my prospects and my clients about is, guys, if you're looking for a 1-year guy, I'm not your guy. We've set up a goal and a strategy for 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year out. Where do you want to be? And we talk about what makes me different. Yeah, sure, I'm passionate. I've got more energy than anybody, but it's my ability to ask difficult questions and make people think that others aren't doing, right? I'm making you think more about insurance and the relationship between the insurance and the employees and your culture than anybody else has ever done.
And what I also sensed is your emotional attachment to winning.
Who doesn't?
A lot of
I
people,
mean,
unfortunately. Right?
but okay, but then that's why they aren't winning. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
and winning is, to be fair, right? To be very fair, winning's different for everybody,
Yeah.
right? My sense of winning is to be on top. I didn't go into sales to be number 3. I didn't go into sales to be number 5 or number 10. I'm in sales to be number 1. I'm in sales and I'm in management of sales to be the best. And I'm willing to do and practice. And it's about practice. You got to, no matter what you do, no matter how old you are, you got to constantly practice.
Now, that's
Right?
hard to do in sales. What did that mean to you, practice?
It's not hard. That's not hard.
But what do you do? Role
Everything
play
you
in front of
do,
the mirror?
okay, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Every single time I have a big presentation, what's the most important part of that presentation? You're a sales guy, you know it. What is it?
I'd ask what they care about.
It's the opening.
Yeah.
You are going to win a sale or lose a sale in the first 3 minutes of that presentation. So I spend every hour of every day, whether I'm in the shower, I'm on the toilet, whether I'm driving to the meeting, I am practicing the inflection, the passion, the commitment, the voice, the words, and I'm practicing everything I'm going to say in the first 3 minutes, because that's the only thing I can control in the entire meeting is the first 3 minutes. The rest of it, I can be throwing curveballs from left field, and I've got to address it. One of the biggest challenges I had when I was younger, and to be fair, I still have it now, is I am so passionate and so committed, it comes across as aggressive. So one of the things that I practice is how to dial that back so I don't come across so strong.
Right.
And especially in today's environment, it intimidates people. It scares them, right? But no. But we shake our head. But the reality of it is if I'm dealing with a woman CFO that I am intimidating, or they view as aggressive, I don't win. So you have to dial it back. So that means I dial my New York City attitude back a little bit, and I can't hide my passion. I can't hide the commitment, and I can't hide the fact that I am who I am. I don't wear ties. I don't wear a suit. I mean, I show up to a meeting in a blue blazer and a blue shirt. That's me. I don't wear a tie. They're like, what do you mean you don't wear a tie? I'm like, I don't wear a tie. I don't wear a tie to a 5-star restaurant. I'm not wearing a tie to a meeting.
Well, I like that practice because a lot of people, they look at it as role play or videotaping themselves, but it can just be mental rehearsal.
Mine's verbal.
You say it out
mine's
loud.
Verbal, 100%.
In the shower, in the car,
in the bathroom, everywhere. My wife comes in the bathroom. She says, what are you doing? I go, I'm rehearsing for my presentation. But she's been with me for 30 years. She knows it. But how are you going to know if you screw up, right? If you don't practice it. And if you don't practice it, you're going to show up to a meeting, and if there's 5 people there and you're alone and you don't know what you're going to say, you will fail. The likelihood of you failing is higher.
Certainly. And what do you see as that best opener? Because I've always had my thing. I just put a huge smile on, like I just met my best friend.
You know what? I think it differs on every meeting. I try to find something within the room that I'm in, whether it's a conference room. When you're in an office, it's easier because you can pick up the kids' sports and, the things in the room that would, are they married? Do they have kids? Do they have a dog? That's easy. If you're in a blank conference room, look, the easiest thing for me to do is start talking about my kids, right?
Yeah.
When they were in primary school, talk about, doing the travel soccer or the, ballet or the recitals. People want to know you're human. They want to know that you're not just there to sell them. They want to know that there's a human being behind that bald head, right? I mean, there's something else besides, just driving and success.
Now, did you have this type of personality your whole life, or was it something you developed?
My whole life.
Yeah. Did you
You know,
play
so
sports?
I did. I think what really drove me, Brian, to be very fair, is I grew up with a learning disability, and I changed schools quite a bit to address that learning disability. So I always had a very high level of interaction with adults. And I learned very early on how to shake somebody's hand. I learned very early on to look somebody in the eye. I learned very early on that there was a sense of difference between me and everybody else. I knew that while I may not have the best learning from an educational perspective, knowledge base, I knew I could sell. And I
No.
knew I could convince other people of my abilities.
What was that, ADD or dyslexia or?
Dyslexia, yeah.
Okay. Have you
And this
done
is back
some
in the day when
Malcolm Gladwell? I don't know if you've read his book on David versus Goliath.
I don't recall.
You
No.
got to check it out because I'm dyslexic also. And he did research on dyslexics, and a disproportionate number of them are ultra successful or in prison. There's the
I
ones
think that's true.
that develop other skills to cover up for the inability to read fast and write fast. They have to get advanced social skills.
Yeah, and I mentor a lot of kids. I mean, one of the things that success has brought me is the ability to spend time with others, right? To really help others that have been either with a learning disability or that have been, afflicted with drugs and alcohol addiction. I mean, those are the types of things where I can get my arms around and really help other people out. I think for me, one of the best things that drives me is not just the money. The money's great, but it's not the driver. The driver is what you do with it and how can you help other people.
Yeah.
That's really the driver for me. Everybody's different, but for me and my family, that's the difference. How do we help others?
Right, because that what they call helper's high gets you in that flow state into the zone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair way of saying it. I think the other thing is we've been able to give so much to our kids. It helps when they see that that life's not just about what
Things.
Range
Yeah.
Rover you drive or what Mercedes you drive. It's really about what are you doing as a human being? What are you doing to help, the kids with food insecurity? How are you using your ability? Me, how's my father, my kids speaking? How's my dad and my mom? How are they helping others? And when they see that you're doing it, they get involved. And that's impressive. That's really impressive for me.
Yeah. And when you're coaching other salespeople, what's your approach as far as because a lot of people typically say, sell like me, like your manager did. But style is kind of unique. But
Mhm.
the core things about listening to the other person, engaging the other person, asking questions, those are super simple things to become much better at sales.
Yeah, so it really depends on what level salesperson you're speaking of, right? So I'm currently in the middle of bringing on a guy who is a service guy. I hired him as a service guy, but I really wanted him to do everything. So I wanted him to try. Gave him 6 months in service, and now we're doing 6 months in sales. No quotas, no nothing. I just want him to understand the process. Go make cold calls. So, well, how do you do it? Did some role playing. I said, but look, here's the thing. Don't use my words because you trying to use my words will fail.
Yep.
You use your own words. You got the concept. You understand the only goal of a call is to get the appointment. That's it. So you use whatever words you feel comfortable using, as long as it fits within this framework, but make it your own. You own it. If you own it, you're going to believe in it. If you believe in it, you can sell it.
Yeah. And do you see those limitations, the major blocking? Because people want a script, but then the script
I
doesn't
don't.
work.
I mean, if you really are worried about a script, then you're in the wrong job.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, a script is, if you want to write something down so you get points in your head, great. But if you're reading off of a piece of paper, the person that you're calling knows you're reading off of a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And they're going to hang up on you every single time. If you call with conviction and passion and commitment and know your shit, they're going to take your call.
Now, I'm also getting the sense from you that you knew how to spend your time, that you could tell or read an account, read the people, and determine where are they on the likelihood of working with you or not.
Sure. I mean, I think there's been many of appointments I've showed up to that I've actually got up 10 minutes after I've gotten there and shaken the person's hand and said, clearly we have misunderstood each other on why we're here, and gotten up and left.
Yeah.
And in many cases, I've gotten the business because they're like, guys like, what the fuck? This guy just got up and left. Like, my time is money, right? There are other types of, this isn't a short sale. I mean, this isn't a one and done.
Right.
This is a long, this is a building block. This takes anywhere from 6 months to a year to close a piece of business. So there are many times that you catch people at a bad time. But if I read the room and the room is silent and they think I'm going to go through a presentation, I get up and leave, because clearly whoever set the meeting didn't do it appropriately, and their idea of why I'm there is quite different than why I'm really there. And I don't have a problem saying this is not a right fit, because why am I going to spend a lot of time on something that's never going to close? I used to work with a sales coach. His name's Tony Cole out in Cincinnati, and great guy. He was my coach for 15 years, just once a week, once every 2 weeks. We became friends. So it became a monthly thing where every company I went to, I brought him with me because he was just so good. Just focus on what you need to get done and do it. And that gets back to student of the business. No matter how good you are and no matter how high up on the rung you are, it just means the bullet's on your back even more. And you need to make sure that you're focused and stay level-headed throughout the whole process.
Well, that's a great point, because very few people will do that. But yet, no matter who you are, you need somebody else's opinion. They can see something pretty crystal clearly that we or you tend to overlook because we don't want to see it.
Well, look, I mean, sales is one of those interesting concepts, right? If you're successful in sales and you do whatever, 50% more than your goal or 100% more than your goal, you yourself can sit there and say, "Wow, good job, boy. Job well done." But the reality of it is if you really focus in not on your successes, but on your failures.
Yes.
And you really understand and do debriefs on why you didn't get it. They truly didn't get it. Not the ones that you scheduled that were wrong, but the ones where you failed, right? There's a winner and a loser in every sale, right? I came in number 2. No. You lost. No, you lost. No win. You lost, right? So there's no number 2. You lost the bid. So if you really understand why you lost it and admit it to yourself, right? It's about admission. There are times where I showed up to meetings and I know I sucked. It just wasn't on my game, right? Yep. Something went wrong. Something went wrong in my head. I've showed up to meetings and absolutely failed. Okay. So do you debrief? What was it? What happened? Okay. If you understand what happened and you're willing to correct it, there's one thing about admitting it, but it's a whole nother thing about correcting it. Most people won't do either of those two.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They'll just sit there and say, hey, oh, that client was an asshole.
Right.
Whatever.
They want lowest
It's their
price.
fault. It's
Yeah.
their fault, not mine. No, it's your fault. And if you look at it that way and say, okay, what can I do better next time? What can the team do better? Well, it all gets down to me. I mean, whether, okay, did I not bring the right people? Did I not bring a person with me and they wanted a team of 7 people to sit there and do nothing? Did they want a flashy presentation that I wasn't going to go through? What can I do better next time?
Yeah. I think if people did just that habit, they become so much better, because the loss of that deal was the tuition of that lesson.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And it
doesn't matter what my numbers aren't small, right? I mean,
right.
my average deals is $200,000 commission, right? So we're not talking about a small amount of money.
That's 4 years at Harvard. Yeah.
No, it's not actually. It's about 2 years at Harvard. But this whole college tuition thing is a joke. I have 2 kids in college, and I have a couple other kids that we put through college. So college tuition is the $70,000 a year gig per kid, which isn't mathematically correct, because you then have to add travel expenses, food, car, insurance. It's $100,000 a year.
Yep.
I don't care how you cut it. Okay, maybe it's 98.
That's it. And the same with sales, a lost deal. If you don't learn that education of how you could have prepared, how you could have brought the right people, how do you get your mind in the game, your body in the game, your focus, you're just going to repeat it.
Think, yeah. I'm a big believer that mind and body is important.
Yeah.
Right. So I run a lot. I'm a fanatic runner, long distance, and I'm a fanatic athlete when it comes to working out in the gym. And I think that one of the things that enables me to stay fresh and on top of my game is my ability to push myself in the gym or push myself out on the road when I'm running. It's one of the best places to really have mental clarity. You're out there running, I'm doing a 10, 15 mile run. Well, guess what? I got a lot of time to think.
Cool. Hey, Michael, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people follow you and connect with you?
LinkedIn.
Yep.
LinkedIn. I don't do any of those social media.
What you think of that? I've always prided myself on the ability to sense the quality of another salesperson through a conversation. And this is hard when you interview a lot of people. And what I've tried to do in the last couple of years is bring on the very best practitioners of sales. Not people who have just written a book or sold 20 years ago, or only have 5 years of sales experience. Because having been through that path, believe me, after the first 3 years of sales, I thought I knew it all. And I had some success. But what you find, if you look at that Dunning-Kruger effect, that loop, where you start off really scared, unconfident, then you have some success, then you get this way overconfidence, and then all of a sudden you don't get the results, then you go sliding down, and then it takes a couple of years before you figure out, wow, there's a lot to the whole game of sales. And to be a student of not just your business, like what Michael was talking about, but a student of selling, of people, of organizations, of how to get deals done. It's so broad and so deep that most people just shy away from it. They stick with a couple of platitudes and think that that's all there is to sales. Oh, it's about relationships. Oh, it's about challenging them. It's all about ROI. And all of those things are great ingredients. And what you heard today in this interview, that practice of that first couple of minutes. Now, I kind of shared what I did. But my approach, certainly in person, it's a lot easier. You put a big smile on like you just met your best friend. Why? Because they naturally and instinctively see the smile, And because it's like a dog wagging its tail, it makes you smile. They reciprocate. And when they smile, subconsciously, their brain is putting into a state of, this is a friendly person. He's part of my tribe. On phone and on Zoom, it's a little different. But practicing that, being conscious of it before you need it, is critical. And what I heard today was where he had his structure, hitting the office early, getting home at a certain time, blocking out that time of high focus, high intensity effort, and then decompressing with his family, having that higher purpose of not only his kids, but charities and being part of society, that helper's high, giving you motivation. Your why is what's popular today, mission, purpose. It's all the same thing. That thing bigger than yourself has always been consistently there to motivate people. The transaction is helpful. It is a big dopamine hit, but it is temporary. What's permanent is those things. And, this is a paradox for me because I don't have kids. I was always the kind of 24/7 type of guy, which is different, but harder in some ways and easier than others. But when you need a life, you need to have some social and some fun. You need to block those things off, high intensity and then decompress. And that mastering of the game. And clearly he worked smarter. I didn't let him get away with the harder thing because the harder thing it is kind of, doesn't help us. You all know that working hard helps. Of course it does. If it doesn't work in 4 hours, if you do it in 40, maybe you get better at it. Practice. We all hear that. And that helps, but does it bring you to the next level? And here's the other point I get out of it that I found kind of in my last couple months of looking back over, the LinkedIn profiles of the people I've worked with through my career. And what I don't find is like this leapfrogging type of thing. What I find is this Groundhog Day, but the first hour, meaning they get up in the morning, a circadian improvement through osmosis. Osmosis is just being there. It's like, if you have to learn a language, this is the immersion process, as opposed to concentrated effort, practice, and building upon the previous day, what I call compounding. Now, we are circadian creatures, which means that's our natural process. We wake up with the sun, we go to bed with the moon. We need our 8 hours, there's no escaping that, of sleep. We like routine and habit. We are creatures of habit. But what that doesn't get us is compounding. That gives us tiny little incremental improvements if we learn. Now, if you look at the second hour of Groundhog Day, that is the compounding. Now, check out the movie. It's funny. It's a little old. It's a little dated. But what Bill Murray does is he starts to learn from his mistakes. He steps in a puddle like 3 times, and then he quickly learns how not to step in the puddle. There's a life insurance sales guy that approaches him. He learns to avoid him. He's trying to date Annie MacDowell, and he finds out what she cares about, French poetry, so he learns a little French poetry. This is compounding. He basically takes each day and tries to make it better. Not just a tiny bit, but kind of a compounding bit. Now, if I looked at all these people that I worked with, most of them, including me to a certain extent, we naturally, we go to work, we make a little bit more, 5% every year, but is that exponential thing? And I saw like a kid I went to high school with who had an exponential event. Now, I haven't talked to him since high school, so clearly my perception is just what I see online. But he was insanely likable, I think he was the president of the class. He was smart, but not genius smart. And his career, up until a point, was mediocre at best. But that relationship, he was able to build off of that and get into very good roles. Now, I cannot judge his skill level, but what happened was basically a trigger event. But with us as salespeople, how do we cause that trigger event? How do we learn the whole game of sales? How do we become better at it? That is under our control. Too much of us relinquish it to just doing the circadian path. Now, in the courses, this is pretty much what I teach. I look for now compounding, exponential scaling of your prospecting, starting conversations and getting meetings, and winning the complex sale. Now, what I should do is just take some of the office hours and edit out, like when people have that epiphany. Now, the epiphanies don't seem like big things, but all of a sudden when your win rate doubles, that's a pretty big epiphany with a little change. And the little change most likely is driven by one thing, thinking like a client. And this is what nobody teaches. Everybody teaches sales like a black box. We don't know what's going on within that company. But if you know what's going on within that company, you know how to get a deal done, or you know why a deal won't happen. And that's really what I teach. It is not solution selling and writing better emails. It's about people and how to communicate with them, and then how organizations change and how you stay engaged with them. Getting away from the checking in, touching base, and having a process that you drive. Now, let me ask you a question. If you've bought a house and the realtor didn't guide you through that process, that's why we hire realtors. And as a buyer, it doesn't cost, we don't think it costs us anything. But that realtor knows what you need to do. And if you watch any of the realtor shows, the good ones qualify really well. I saw one episode where they say, we're looking anywhere from 800K to 8 million. Well, that, my bullshit meter would just like pin when I hear that. It's like, well, you're a waste of time. You're a 10x factor off about what you want and can afford. And you're just going to waste my time. You go to Zillow. What a good realtor does is they find what the client really wants and needs, shows them those things, helps them pin it down which one they most like and will be happy with and can afford, and guides them through the offer process to get that house. That's what we have to do. We're not somebody who just shows up and bakes cookies and say, oh yeah, look at the beautiful kitchen, the rustic fireplace. No, we have to guide them through a decision process. Because if you're a first-time house buyer, you may know the house you want, but you do not know how to get it. And that's what we have to do, is teach them how to get it. And your company isn't going to teach you this. All I hear on LinkedIn, I put a post out about, are you a sales leader or a sales admin? And I got to tell you, 90% of them are admins. They're sales operations and administration people, counting things, processing paper, looking at dashboards, yelling at people, nudging people, babysitting. That's the word I hear all the time, babysitting. Well, that's not sales leadership. That's sales admin. You're in the wrong job. Sales leadership, it's about how do you decide what to work on, in what order, and how you work on it. Am I rambling? I think I am. I'll let you go. I really appreciate you listening. Please share the content if you see it fly by on LinkedIn. All these videos of this are on LinkedIn, or on YouTube, I mean, as well as all the funny ones. If you know a great salesperson, please let me know. I'd love to hear from them. Get them on the show. We'll see you next time.